While the second half of 2022 proved to be a disaster for the housing market, there has been a resurgence of headlines declaring that real estate is back on track with prices, demand, and bidding wars surging in cities throughout the United States. Real estate agents, home builders, and prop tech companies are celebrating with headlines like these, and across financial media there has been an uptick in bullish sentiment regarding this topic. The crash is cancelled according to many of these experts. And while there is some evidence suggesting this path, the real story is hidden behind another mountain of data that is painting a very different outcome, one that is much more bearish. In many cities across the US, housing stats are indicating that this may just be the start of a 2008-like crash that is set to decimate values. But before we showcase this view, let's first take a look at the opposite side of this argument. We know that last year, various outlets and experts began reporting that housing was undergoing a cooling period. Even people who you would expect to be permabulls like Redfin CEO Glenn Kelman came out and openly stated that the market does not look good. In the second half of 2022, as prices began declining, showing slowed, and interest rates shot up, Kelman was very vocal, suggesting that the market is changing rapidly to the downside. As the CEO of a major prop tech, this came as a surprise to many people, as it's obviously believed that it's in his best interest to speak about the market in an exclusively positive manner, especially as his company's stock price tumbled over 96%. In the middle of these lows and bankruptcy rumors, Redfin and many other firms put out various reports that cautioned the industry that the storm was approaching. From that point on, we saw the tide turn. The bears became a loud voice while the bulls were seen as delusional and greedy. But as the new year began, we started to see new reports of competing bids, an increase in traffic, and lower interest rates. Just as the bears were picking up momentum, the feel of the market swung in the other direction. Kelman was one of the first CEOs to openly argue this new bull case. His primary piece of evidence is this: a massive jump in mortgage applications following a minor decline in interest rates. While the year-over-year number is still bad, we saw a 7% jump at the start of January, followed by a 27% jump in the weeks that followed. Numbers that suggest a surge in demand. At the same time, we also saw the 30-year rate come down 1% or 14% proportionately speaking in a matter of weeks. This, combined with first-hand accounts from various realtors in dozens of markets throughout the US, made Kelman and others in the industry rethink their bearish or neutral position on housing for 2023. Essentially, the crash was canceled, and now we look up as housing goes back to the super growth era. But can this really be true? Well, before I answer this question, I would hope you could take a minute to hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the video thus far. My last upload got over 1,000 likes, and I would love for this one to reach 2,000. Now let's go back to the great switch. What made everyone change their position so quickly and begin looking at the housing market through an optimistic lens? We could look at stats and other graphs to develop our own picture of the market, or we can turn in a different direction, examining the market from a source that I would argue has the best pulse on the entire real estate sector. This collection of evidence is both historically reliable and offers insights not available in graphs and other publicly available statistics. I'm talking about the nation's largest home builders. We know that new homes often act as an anchor for prices and lead the way in pushing the market as a whole. New builders are almost exclusively the first to cut prices, and while their CEOs can mask certain market conditions with clever language and financial trickery, at the end of the day, these are large publicly traded businesses that answer to shareholders who demand the truth. So what better way to find out about the future of real estate than to examine the nation's 5 largest residential home builders? These 5 companies right here account for more than 26% of all the new homes built in the entire country. Now, ignoring Heritage and Pulte Homes, which are set to release earnings later this week, we can paint a very good picture of the environment by comparing our notes from each respective CEO as of their latest report. One of the first things we notice is that all 3 companies reported a decrease in prices. For example, D.R. Horton, which is the largest builder in the country, made it clear to investors that they expect their average sale price and margin to continue to decrease in the second quarter, noting increased construction costs along with higher sales incentives and home price reductions. That's a fancy way of saying that in order to move their inventory, they have been slashing prices and giving away things like this, a rate buy down. This is a program that allows customers of Horton to essentially get a much better rate than what's out there publicly. For example, in this ad, they claim that certain Colorado customers can get a moving rate that allows them to pay 2.99% in the first year, gradually moving up to 5% in the third year, and after that, the rate is capped and fixed for the rest of the term. Incentives like this are incredible given the recent run up to 6 or even 7% and push more and more customers to buy at the expense of margin or the money Horton makes on each home sale. This means more home builders are being forced to dig into their own pocketbooks to keep customers coming. Then we have cancellation rates. Lennar stated that their cancellation rate is 27%, which is more than 2 times higher than what it was this time last year. DR Horton reported that theirs was 26%, down from 32% sequentially, but still elevated from the typical level of 12%. And finally, KB Homes, which reported an unbelievable 68% cancellation rate. During the last housing crash, these rates hovered around 50%, which means that we are already seeing some of the top players cross that threshold, and for others, it's going to be a painful balancing act trying to keep demand steady by offering price cuts and incentives that dig into margins. And if that wasn't enough to convince you, then look no further than this: a slowdown in building starts. It's pretty obvious that home builders make their money doing exactly that, building homes. So if the market was supposedly good, why on earth would they be choosing to slow down on starts? DR Horton, remember the largest builder in the nation, has reduced their home starts by 21% year over year and 7% sequentially. It's no secret that for Horton, 2/3 of their homes and inventory sit unsold. Not too long ago, this number was closer to 50%, which makes the decision to reduce starts an obvious one. And this type of action is in line with the last crash, in which we saw single-family starts plummet downwards for an entire year before price changes began taking effect. So why are people like Kelman arguing that we may have just seen the bottom of housing prices and that the market is in the middle of a major turnaround? Well, based on his long 16-tweet thread about exactly this topic, Kelman references 3 major components for his thesis. One is the clear jump in the number of people touring with Redfin agents. This essentially measures demand, and the number was down about 33% year over year back in November. Today it has improved to minus 19%, which shows that things are picking back up. Second is the one topic everyone seems to be referencing in regards to a bull case. Inventory is still low compared to the pre-2020 period. Kelman makes the point that from 2021 to 2022, inventory rose 12%, but it's still roughly half of what it was back in 2016. Only 2% of mortgages are underwater, while in 2008 that number was as high as 30%. This means supply is tight historically speaking, and tight supply tends to correlate with price stability or even price increases. And finally, his last point is the feedback he's getting from thousands of agents across the country who are sensing a rush of people back to shopping after a slight decline in adjustment period for 30-year rates. These first-hand accounts are backed by the mortgage application data, which I talked about earlier. Week over week, we have seen a massive jump in the number of people applying, implying that demand has risen a bit from those late 2022 lows. But at the end of the day, this entire market is battling one major component that simply cannot be defeated. This is the Federal Reserve. To keep it simple, the Federal Reserve sets the base rate, which in turn influences the 10-year yield, which in turn changes the 30-year mortgage rate. In summary, this guy decides how high the 30-year rate will go. And using something called the dot plot, we know that the Federal Reserve expects that in 2023 their base rate will reach 5.25%, which given historical correlation means that the 30-year mortgage should once again break the recent all-time high, jumping past 7%. So if we expect home prices to remain stable or go even higher this year, that implies that we are expecting the normal house buyer to have a mortgage payment approaching $3,000 a month, which is nearly 3 times higher than pre-2020 levels. To believe this narrative, one has to believe that normal everyday Americans will lose the ability to buy homes that go down the Canada/Europe route, which ensures that people spend most of their take-home pay on the mortgage or rent, or it implies that American wages will increase significantly in a way we have never seen before, allowing people to afford these massive payments. In summary, the implied scenario here is very unrealistic if home prices continue to go up and the Federal Reserve stays the course with their expected rate hikes. The only real way to fix this market is for prices to come down. As always, thank you guys for watching. Please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the video, and make sure you drop a comment below letting me know if you agree with Keller or the opposite.